And back with us are Yasmin Dasugian outside the courthouse. And so, Yasmin, what's happening there right now?
You have to have people online.
Yeah, so they got up and going. They resumed court just a couple of minutes ago, about 6 minutes or so, coming back from this lunch break. They're getting into the Sandoval hearing from what I'm seeing here. And let me just walk folks through, because we saw filing on about 2 days ago from the prosecution as to what was going to, what this would entail, what the Sandoval hearing would entail. And this is essentially a hearing in which they present how cross-examination would look if, in fact, the former president and his attorneys together decided that he would take the stand in his own testimony. So they're establishing really a pattern of behavior, Anna, it seems, in this Sandoval hearing and what they would do in cross. And they would be presenting, for instance, the conviction of the Trump Corporation, Trump Payroll Corporation as well, lying under oath, the judgment from Judge Engoron with the Trump civil fraud trial. They kind of want to establish this pattern of behavior for the former president. If we think about some of the other testimony that we are expecting from some other key witnesses here, for instance, Michael Cohen, right? We know, for instance, the defense is going after Michael Cohen's character, right? What we're hearing from prosecution is, for instance, Michael Cohen, when he is to take the stand, they're going to focus less on his character and more about documentation, right? They're going to be presenting Michael Cohen with a lot of documents and saying, yes, no, is this accurate? Is this not accurate? To take the kind of limelight off of Michael Cohen's character. In this instance, and I only bring that up to juxtapose that to the former president, in this instance, this is going to be somewhat more of a character testimony, hence the reason why they're talking about all of the convictions that the former president has faced over the last couple of years, his corporation, Trump Organization as well. And so it will come down to hearing this information for the former president, along with his attorneys, and then making that decision as to whether or not he's going to testify.
Okay, Yasmin, stay with me as I bring in our legal analyst, NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, and former New York Assistant Attorney General Adam Pollack. Good to see you guys. Wow, what a week. Here we are. We now have a jury fully seated, the 12-person jury plus the 6 alternates. We got those alternates just within the last couple of hours. And so now we've moved into this Sandoval hearing, and Yasmin really just outlined what's happening inside the courthouse now. Before we talk more in depth about that, just first, Danny, are you surprised we're at this point already?
I'm nonplussed. I mean, if you'd asked me 6 days ago, I would have said jury selection. I would have taken the over. I would have said more than 2 weeks. I might have even said 3 weeks. And in fact, after day one of jury selection, I was doubling down on that because it moved so slowly. You'll recall it seems like an era ago, but on Monday morning, they didn't even get to jury selection till the afternoon, and they barely made a scratch on the surface. But oh, how things picked up after that. And for lawyers out there who have picked juries, and I've had cases that have taken many weeks to pick juries. It's astonishing that in a case of this import, that the judge was able, and not even a full week of work, mind you, just 4 days, to pick a jury in arguably one of the foremost critically important criminal cases in American history. It's mind-blowing. And of course, for those who said this was just normal jury selection, it really wasn't, because in other cases, if a juror says at the outset, hey, I actually know this defendant and I have opinions about him, in almost every other case, good chance that juror is going to get tossed either on a for-cause challenge and then probably on a peremptory. But in a way, everyone came to this case saying, as a baseline, everyone's going to know this defendant and everyone's going to have opinions about this defendant. Let's start from there. Can you set aside those opinions and render a verdict based on the facts and the evidence? So just a remarkable case of so many firsts right here in New York.
Adam, why do you think it went so fast?
I think Judge Merchan is showing that he is in control of this courtroom. He's in control of the process, and he wants to see an efficient and effective process. Pick a jury. Everybody knows the defendant here, but pick a jury that can be unbiased and impartial and observe the evidence and make a decision based on the evidence.
What do you think of Judge Merchan and how he's handled all of this? What are your impressions?
I've been impressed. I mean, we've seen him before. He's a great judge. He knows what he's doing. He wants to ensure that an orderly trial happens, and an orderly trial happens swiftly. It was also, we all thought this was going to be weeks to pick a jury, like in Boston from the Boston bomber, the marathon bomber, that took weeks to pick a jury when everybody in Boston knew who that defendant was. Same thing here, but unlike there, they did it very swiftly.
These jurors are going to have a lot of weight on their shoulders here, Danny, even inside the questioning today, as prospective alternate jurors were going through the questionnaire, as they were being questioned during voir dire. We saw people crying. There were at least 4 who expressed having really bad anxiety. We're not even into the trial yet. What are the next 6 to 8 weeks going to be like for this panel of jurors?
In many ways, it's common, for example, to lose jurors after they're seated. Maybe they fall asleep during trial. Maybe something comes up. It's pretty rare to lose jurors between the time they're selected and before the trial even starts, while jury selection is still going on, because normally nothing's really happening. But in this case, you saw jurors who went home, slept on it, maybe talked to their families, came back in and said, you know what, I've had a change of heart. And I think one of the things all the parties are thinking about now is how much do we need to worry about this as the trial goes on. I mean, if you had it any way you could, you'd probably want 20 alternates, because there's a real chance that you might start burning through jurors in ways that you don't normally lose jurors in the ordinary trial. And the last few days have been a classic example of that. Jurors who come back in and say, geez, I don't think I can be impartial anymore. Or, you know, my family contacted me. I didn't realize how much I would be put out there in the public. And maybe I'm having second thoughts about this. So while juror attrition is something that's normal, that's why we have alternate jurors in the first place. This is a case where you might see some very unusual kinds of juror attrition. And we've already seen it. And opening statements haven't even started yet.
But what has started just now is the Sandoval hearing that we heard mentioned by Yasmin. Adam, how's this going to go?
I think it's going to be a really interesting Sandoval hearing, because it's a much longer list of prior evidence, of prior cases involving Trump and his Trump Corporation, the defamation case. There's a much longer list than you normally see of prior bad conduct. And I think the judge needs to really make a tough decision here if Trump testifies, what he's going to allow in and what's going to be unduly prejudicial.
Why give Donald Trump a heads up of what kind of questions he could be asked?
You have to, because the rule against character evidence is so important. I say this as a criminal defense attorney, and take what I say with a grain, nay, a block of salt. But there's a rule that you can't introduce bad things somebody has done in the past as evidence that they committed this crime. But it's a rule with so many exceptions, it might as well not be a rule at all. Because as long as you can come up with some other reason, some other purpose for admitting that evidence. And in New York, the procedure is essentially a Sandoval hearing. And what they're doing now is giving Trump essentially a preview of what they would like to introduce as those prior bad acts if the judge lets them. And if it were up to the state, if it were up to the prosecutors, they'd introduce all manner of bad acts. That's why you have a hearing. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, in the federal courts, there's something called a 404B hearing. Generally speaking, the rule differs slightly from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. They balance the probative value, which is just shorthand for, is it really interesting to this case, against the prejudicial effects. So sometimes even something that is relevant and probative may be excluded if it's just too prejudicial. And that's the balancing test that the judge has to apply to each of these prospective pieces of evidence that the state wants to bring in. And believe me, the state wants to bring in as much bad character as they possibly can, because they know what everyone's known for millennia, which is when you show that a defendant has bad character, the jury is much more inclined to convict them.
Danny Savalos, Adam Pollack, thank you, but please stick around.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.